Thank you so much for tuning in today. I wanted to let you know about a couple of opportunities right now through Freedom Shield Foundation where you can jump in and help make an impact in your own community. So one way that you can help out is that we are busy right now feeding vulnerable families. There are many right now due to the coronavirus that are really struggling just to make ends meet. So right now, we're providing as many meals as possible. We've already delivered over 100,000 meals to those in our local community as we partner with Kids Against Hunger. So if you are interested in helping out your neighbor, these meals are literally less than $1 to provide a family of 6 with a nutritious meal. So if you're interested in helping out, please consider making a donation. We'll make sure that those families that are in need will have access to these meals. And secondly, as we're also looking at the impact of this virus on those that are truly at risk right now, those who are traffic victims in our own nation, we are providing go bags for those who are trying to seek safe shelter. In this go bag, we'll have all the essentials that a victim would need as she's trying to start over and get into a safe place. We have clothing, toiletries, all the essentials. If you're interested in helping out, we're going to have a link to our Amazon list. Feel free to purchase, all the contents for one go bag for a victim, or just choose what you can to help out. We thank you so much for partnering with us as we're trying to reach those who are vulnerable right now in our own nation.
I'm here to tell you that no foreign government and no domestic government is going to stop human trafficking by themselves. The only way this is going to stop is by you, person of influence, getting involved here locally so that we can impact the rest of the country and the rest of the world. So I'm asking you, now that you've become aware, will you join us? Will you join the awakening?
Thank you so much for joining the Awakening series, where we discuss all things human trafficking. This isn't to be alarmist or to cause fear. This is actually to help equip you and your family as you see this rising issue across our nation. We want to give you the tools so that you know you can actually engage in this in your family, with your children, and in your own community and make an impact. So today we're going to start out with just discussing what is human trafficking. Is it happening here? And if so, how? I think it's really important that we don't assume that everyone already knows what's happening when it comes to human trafficking, because it's still largely an unseen issue. So I would love to just kind of break it down with you today and give you the basics. And again, our goal is to equip you to know how to make the best decisions you can make to protect yourself and those that you love, as well as seeing how you can get involved in your own community to help those who are in this vulnerable situation. So right now, there are over 40 million people across the world who are trapped in this form of slavery. Now, there are a variety of ways. Some even say that there's 14 different forms of human trafficking. I just want to focus on the main kind of overview of what those categories are. And then later, we can get into the specifics. But first of all, we have the form of human trafficking that is child soldiers. We see this very often in other countries such as the Philippines, where we're very active. And this is, again, just taking those who are young and vulnerable, very impressionable, out of the safety and security of a home, or they have actually been potentially, sold by their parents, or the parents are misled into understanding what's really happening with their kids after they've been exchanged into someone else's hands. So these kids are actually forced to learn how to be in combat. They may be forced to make explosive devices or learn how to handle a gun. They are the ones that end up getting on the front lines. And so this is a horrific form of human trafficking that is very much prevalent, again, like I said, mostly in other countries around the world. The second form of human trafficking is labor trafficking. This is very, very common really across the entire world. And labor trafficking involves, again, just the force, fraud, or coercion of getting someone into a situation that is extreme as far as labor. They're not, here in the United States, they're not following the labor laws that we've put in place to protect people. They may be having to work, 7 days a week, long extended hours without breaks. They may have been misled and they thought they were coming to serve in one capacity, perhaps in the hospitality industry, and they end up in bondage or in servitude to a family who's abusive. So that's what labor trafficking can look like. And then we have sex trafficking. This is definitely the most common form that we address at Freedom Shield Foundation. And sex trafficking, again, involves force, fraud, or coercion for the purpose of luring an individual into providing sexual services for money. This could also take the form of not even just money, but perhaps just the basic survival. So maybe they're provided lodging or a meal. That's what it can look like sometimes with sex trafficking. But again, you have individuals who end up having to perform sexual acts in order to survive. So those are three of the ways that we have been combating just across the nation human trafficking. One of the newest forms of human trafficking that we as an organization began addressing is that of organ trafficking. And this is such a dark thing to sometimes even have to wrap our minds around, but literally there are individuals who are sold for different organs that would be able to be sold on the black market. So when you have that, again, it's such a dire situation because we need to be able to reach the individuals before this happens to prevent fatality. And sometimes they take organs and sew them back up and send them out on their way again. But they're left now with all kinds of health complications. So those are the four main categories of human trafficking in our world today. And again, as you can see, it's a dark issue. And I have to deal with this on a daily basis in the line of work that I do. But I never look at this issue and feel overwhelmed or hopeless, because I know that there are amazing people in this world just like you that once your eyes are open to this issue and you've been awakened, I know that you're going to do what you can to help us fight this and combat it, not only for your own family's sake and for your community, but just for the world. So that's really just in a nutshell what human trafficking is in our world today. So the next thing would be, okay, but is it really happening here in the United States? And the answer is yes. We're actually in the top 3 nations in the world now for trafficking victims. The United States, Mexico, and the Philippines are the top 3. So yes, it's absolutely happening in the United States. We're not only one of the top nations in the world for human trafficking, but we're also the nation that drives the demand for sex trafficking and just every form of the sex industry. We're the biggest purchasers of that type of commodity in the world. So the United States, if we look inward, we can see that this is an issue that has become very pervasive in our world. And it's so difficult, again, because you can't always see it in front of you. So that's one of the reasons that we wanted to start The Awakening, is just to give you the knowledge and the education to be able to go, okay, maybe before I didn't realize that could actually be trafficking, but now I understand what could potentially actually be going on. So in the United States, when it comes to sex trafficking specifically, you have different forms of where these types of things could be going on. Number one would be online. There's lots of ways that predators can now engage and access those who may be vulnerable to being lured into this. You also have the massage parlors, which is probably one of the fastest growing forms of sex trafficking in the United States. And then there's what happens through the strip clubs. We have lots of, still street prostitution, things that are happening in motels and hotels as well. And also the big sporting events and big conferences and things that would draw large crowds into an area. Anytime we see that, we also see an increase in sex trafficking. So those are some of the ways that we see this happening within the United States. What I want to focus on specifically is just thinking about that online access to those who may be vulnerable. This is where, as a parent myself, this was very important to me to learn what was happening and how individuals could be targeting my own children. So this is, again, such an easier process for traffickers and for pimps to be able to reach individuals, find a way to connect with them, and it's called the grooming process, and then lure them into where they feel either forced or they have been in some way fraudulently presented an option that didn't turn out to be what was presented originally, or there's some form of control dynamic that comes into this scenario where they may be threatening the child with, if they did happen to send a photo, well, I'm going to now, put this out where other people can see it. I'm going to harm someone else in your family or someone that you care about or your friend. And so there's a lot of ways that control element comes in when the solicitation is happening online. So those are some of the ways that it's happening right here in our own nation. And I feel like, again, once we begin to be aware of what's going on, how it's happening, then the next question is always going to be, okay, then what do we do about it? So that's what this is all about. The Awakening series will continue to give you the tools that you need so that you can become truly an advocate for those that need you to step up. You can become an ambassador for this cause and truly allow your life to now be one that is impacting those around you for good.